Hey guys, welcome back to TechStar. My name is Leyzar, and today on the menu we have something truly beautiful. We're talking about a themed keyboard from Varmilo. And I apologize in case I'm getting the pronunciation wrong, but this is their Chang'e keyboard alongside the mouse and the mousepad as well. Now, before we get into anything, they did send this out for review, but there's no money exchanging hands, no script, they're not getting any editorial privileges, and they are seeing this exactly when you are. All of my thoughts and opinions are 100% my own. Now, let's see what's inside the box. Looks may be subjective, but I gotta say this keyboard is... To say it's beautiful is a massive understatement. This is an absolutely gorgeous keyboard. They took so much time and built in so much detail into this thing. Not only the paint scheme itself, but also the texture and all of the details, like the Big Dipper, like the moon phases. There is just so much into this one. It is absolutely fantastic and gorgeous looking. You know what? Even the white backlight works nicely on this one. Although I gotta say, on a $200 keyboard, I would have loved to see customizable RGB. When it comes to the typing experience, these EC Violet switches are something else. Now they feel similar to something like MX Browns, however they're a lot more smoother because these are Electro capacitive switches. Therefore the wear and tear is basically or almost non-existent for these. So theoretically these switches can last you forever, again theoretically. That said, you will have to make a big sacrifice for those EC switches. If you want EC switches, then you can't get a hot swappable board simply because of the trigger mechanism, so bear that one in mind. It's a trade-off. Do you want hot swap? You can get this one as a hot swap, or you can get it with the EC switches. I gotta say the EC switches are something truly special and different, especially from a typing perspective. I would encourage you give these Violet EC switches a try. These are the V2s from Varmilo. And speaking of, let's head on over to the Varmilo website so I can show you what options you got. First things first, do you need a full layout like I do, or are you looking for something a bit more smaller because you can go for the 80% or the TKL? This is more gaming oriented, but more on gaming just a tad later. Then you gotta choose yourself a switch, and they got plenty of switches for you to choose from. But like I said before, if you wanna go for EC switches, then you gotta forgo the hot swap capability. You gotta choose between wired and white backlight or dual mode. Essentially in dual mode, that is their way of attaching wireless to the keyboard. The one that I have in front of me is wired. There's tons of information over on the Varmilo website, including the backstory of Chang'e, the Chinese goddess of the moon. And by the way, the illustrator is Li Huan, and I know that for a lot of you fantastic people, that will mean a whole lot. Oh, and for a limited time, you get these things. I'm not exactly sure which keyboard comes with what, but you get this cool little rabbit, which again has some mythological significance to the whole story of Chang'e. Now let's talk about the actual switches. We're talking about Varmilo EC2V Violet, and these are typing switches. The pre-travel on these are about 2mm, and you're looking at 45 grams of operation force. Again, we're talking something similar to MX Brown, so if you ever typed on MX Browns before, essentially this is the experience, but these being EC switches, again electrocapacitive switches, are a whole lot more smoother. So if you fancy yourself some, let's say, upgraded Browns, this is definitely a way you can go. However, again, if you want EC switches, you are sacrificing the hot swappability of the board. Now granted, you can open up the keyboard and try to desolder the switches, but considering these are EC switches, I think I'm gonna leave them alone for now. Again, the typing experience is fantastic on this one, and in case I didn't mention, with cheaper V-Sub PBT keycaps, you're getting that whole coarse feeling. These are smooth and silky. Fine-tuned stabilizers. Now the stabilizers in the keyboard are pretty good and not overly rattly, however, they are not lubed. It'll take you about 15 to 20 seconds to get in there with some dielectric grease if you want to lube them up, but it's not really necessary from my subjective point of view. Now this one has a sandwich layer which is made out of silicone and a bottom layer which is made out of silicone as well, plus the metal plate. So essentially the typing experience is on the firm side, but not 100% metal, if that makes any sense to you. I do enjoy, again, typing on this one. It is quite the nice experience. Now let's briefly touch on the software and the support for the keyboard. Unfortunately, the only software that I managed to find is called Varmilo Keyboard 1.0. And unfortunately, this specific software does not hook up to my keyboard. It's not connecting to it, so therefore I cannot generate any macros for me to use or to remap my keys, which is a bit of an issue. And I cannot use the RGB functions as well. This is not an RGB keyboard. It still has a white backlight that you can control via the FN and arrow keys. But again, when it comes to software, it just simply looks like this one doesn't have any software. And I don't mind not being able to control the lights necessarily, because when it comes to a single color backlight, there's only so much you can do or actually need, but I would love the functionality to be able to rebind some of the keys or create some macros. So there is that to bear in mind. Now let's do a quick test with Keyboard Inspector, because while I was gaming earlier, I noticed that the keyboard is a tad on the slow side, and I thought, hey, probably just my imagination. However, if we are gonna be doing a test, and by the way, I repeated this test on 2 different computers, you will see that the polling rate for this one is only 500 Hz. And 500 Hz, you know what, is definitely fine for typing applications, office applications, no problem whatsoever. But when it comes to gaming, it's definitely not ideal. While this is a keyboard review, I'm gonna briefly touch on the mousepad and the mouse as well. The mousepad is absolutely fantastic. This one costs about $12, 12 USD, 12 bucks, and you're getting 400 by 900. It's a very good quality, no kinks, no issues whatsoever. Obviously, rubber on the base, and it works beautifully well with the keyboard because it's themed the same way. So essentially, if you're getting a Varmilo keyboard, make sure you get yourself a matching mouse mat because it looks absolutely amazing. As for the mouse, this is a wireless mouse, currently not available on the Varmilo website, so I can't tell you the specifications, what kind of DPI, what kind of CPI, and all of that stuff. However, what I can tell you, it's a wireless optical mouse, and I don't know the sensor, but the model is VM01, and if you take a look at the software over on Varmilo, you'll see that it doesn't currently have any software, but in the manual, we do know something. It has a DPI switch over here, and yes, it is fully functional, and you can toggle between 800, 1200, 1600, 2000, and 2400 DPI, so if you're curious about that one. Also, it has a low power switch. Apparently, something is supposed to be flashing around the scroll wheel when the battery is low, and it also has a scroll click as well, the DPI. It's an ambidextrous design, and it feels pretty good in this hand. However, if you're a lefty, keep in mind that the front and back buttons are only on the right side, so if you're gonna be a left-handed user, you might have issues using those. The only problem I have from a ergonomic standpoint is the fact that it's back heavy, so I don't call it ass heavy. That's because in the back you're gonna have yourself a battery. It's gonna be a AA battery. You also got this small slot to keep your receiver in, and that's pretty much it. What can I say about it? It works fine. It is quite functional. And depending on the price, if this is like 20 bucks, if it's something like 20 bucks, then I would definitely get to have the whole set. Now, of course, if you're a competitive gamer, this is not something for you, but for everybody else, this will get the job done just fine. Another cool feature that the keyboard has is a groove for your cable. So essentially, you connect the USB Type-C right in the middle, but then you can angle it out to the left, to the right, or straight down the middle. Unfortunately, this one doesn't really work with the included cable. I tried a couple of angled cables as well. What you need is a cable that has a really short, or as short as possible, USB Type-C connector. And that's pretty much gonna do it, so it's time to draw some conclusions regarding the Varmilo keyboard. And I'll tell you this, it's difficult to draw a conclusion on an entire series of keyboards based on a single one, because the results you're gonna be getting from them will vary wildly depending on how you chose to set up your board, and your switch choice being one of the most important. When it comes to the looks are entirely subjective, but there are plenty of offerings for you to choose from. For example, the Panda, the Crane of Lure, or my personal favorite, the Beijing Opera, because it has the same LGV colors. So you're probably gonna be able to find something that you like in terms of aesthetics, and again, the quality is just insane on these. When it comes to the switches, if you still want to use this for gaming applications, then I would suggest a fast linear switch. Look at something like Cherry Reds. If you go for Cherry Reds, you will still get the hot swappable board, so you can swap them out later for something like Cherry MX Silvers, which are inherently faster. But I would recommend this keyboard to typists. If you are typing a whole lot and you want to have yourself a premium typing experience, the EC switches, which are soldered to the plate, are definitely the way to go. Now, the last thing you need to decide is what kind of actuation force do you require. I would not go for the Daisy, the 35 grams, simply because at 35 grams, you can't really rest your hands on the keyboard because you're going to be getting presses. Then again, if you're looking for that super lightweight typing experience, the Daisy is the way to go. I would recommend the Sakura for everyday typists, and if you're just typing occasionally, go for the Rose. And for the clicky, obviously, the Ivy switches. And I do believe, my friends, that is pretty much everything I wanted to point out. It's a fantastic keyboard. I am honestly in awe of its looks, but when it comes to the features department, it is a little bit lackluster. We are talking about a $200 board or more, depending on the options that you chose for this one. And for $200, I'm not getting any wireless compatibility, no 2.4 GHz, no Bluetooth, there's no RGB on it, I can't customize macros, I can't reassign keys, and the polling rate is only at 500 Hz. So while it does offer a premium experience, from a feature perspective, it's not really there. At the end of the day, you gotta ask yourself, do I care about these features or not? Because if you don't, then this is one hell of a keyboard. And it's also gonna depend on your use case scenario. If you're a programmer, definitely go for something like this. If you're a typist, 100%. If you're a gamer, perhaps not. Oh, and by the way, the warranty, we're looking at 1 year, which is normal for China, but in Europe and North America, we get 2 years as standard. So hopefully Varmilo can hear us and increase that. Also, I didn't find any information regarding a return policy, so that is that to bear in mind. My friends, this is the Varmilo keyboard, and in case I get a discount code, I'm gonna paste it in the comment section down below and in the description as well. As always, my name has been Leyzar. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, favorite, share, and subscribe only if you enjoy the content, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.